I've been working in chocolate in some capacity since I was 19 years old. That was pretty much the moment where everything changed for me. It was the first time I had ever had a piece of chocolate that was really, really intentional, where, my grandpa would bring over what I thought was like artisan chocolate for Christmas or like some fancy dinner, and I always thought that was like, it was probably the fanciest part of my childhood, and so I was really into it. You know, he'd come over and he'd open like the C's sampler, and we'd all like go over it like vultures, and it was delicious. But the first time that I ever had a piece of chocolate that was like handmade as an experience for somebody who was going to eat it, and you could tell all the work that went into it just from eating a bite of it, I was just totally hooked. The name Bon Bon Bon, I thought of in my sleep. I actually kind of thought that I would open a chocolate bar company. And I was really, really interested because of my work in agricultural economics, and then also my working with farmers and just my interest in being a pastry chef. I kind of thought I could bring them all together in that sort of way. And I was working at a chocolate shop that I just absolutely love with a woman who's been a chocolatier for ages and ages. And she just told me, she goes, "Alex, you can't make chocolate bars, you have to make bonbons." It's funny because I had always been pretty creative, but I had never had a medium. And like once I found that medium, I was just totally hooked. It's the coolest thing you get to work with. In these communities that are growing cacao, hundreds and hundreds of miles away from you, where, there are some places where, in a whole community, they might grow 9 tons of cacao, and like, we're buying 21 tons a year. So like the amount of dependence that a small community can have on the taste for chocolate that another community has is really incredible. So it ends up being this cool connector, not only like within the community here or whatever community a chocolatier is working in, but also a connector between communities where they become interdependent in like, I think, a truly unique way.
Actually met Alex as she was launching Bon Bon Bon, so I've had this really interesting relationship with the company where I was a consumer at first, and then through other jobs did some partnerships with Alex and Bon Bon Bon, and then we just totally hit it off. And then as I kind of came on board and have gotten to know her from a totally different perspective as her being my boss, it's been really amazing to work at a space where all the employees have a voice.
We opened in Hamtramck originally, and the space was tiny. It's 650 square feet, and that was both like a little tiny retail area in the front, and then we'd push the counters back and then make everything in the back. And so we were only open 1 day a week, and that 1 day a week was slammed. It was overwhelming. It was like way too much. And so we had these people coming in to our shop, and they were actually with Martha Stewart magazine, and it was so random. But they walked in, and this one lady that was with them from Detroit said, is there anything I can do to help you? Like, what can I do to make this work? And I feel like people say that all the time, so when they do, I always just tell them something ridiculous because, you're not gonna do anything anyway, so why don't we just, and I was like, I need 400 square feet of prime real estate downtown right now. And she was like, okay. And sure enough, that Tuesday, I was looking at spaces downtown, and within a week we had signed a lease for our location downtown, and we needed it. We just needed a place where we could separate retail from production because it was getting completely overwhelming. It's funny how we ended up in Hamtramck because it wasn't totally intentional. But both of my roommates from college are from Hamtramck, and there was a space that became available that was across the street from my roommate's grandpa's house. And And to be totally honest, it was probably like the worst place to start a retail shop on paper, just because it's like the wrong way on a one-way street. And it's just the tiniest shop, and it's tucked behind the Hamtramck at Coney Island, but it was like the perfect place to start Bon Bon Bon, because the guys at the Coney Island are just the best. You know, you knew like you were gonna be okay if you needed anything, you had it, you know? And the neighborhood over there is just incredible. I mean, I can't tell you the number of times that somebody would come over with like leftovers, because we were still at the shop at 10 o'clock at night or 10:30, you know, and they'd be like, hey, we had some leftover lasagna, you know, have you guys eaten dinner yet? The amount of care and concern that the community put into making sure that Bon 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 even just physically survived as humans was pretty incredible. We really get influenced by everything, whether it's agriculturally or culturally, and so it really feels like, it just feels like the big box of crayons. You know, like you get all of the colors, and as a chocolatier and a chocolate company that really likes to kind of push flavor boundaries or get people comfortable with ingredients that maybe they've never had before, there could not be a better place. The Hamtramck is absolutely the home of Bon Bon Bon. Initially, we didn't know what to do when COVID happened. We knew we would do whatever was legally supposed to happen, we were absolutely going to do. But what that was seemed to be changing day by day. And it was really rolling with the punches for a minute, where we were figuring out what was allowed to be open, what were we comfortable with keeping open, how were we comfortable even operating? Like, it felt like if Bon 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 fit into like a shoebox and all of the pieces just fit perfectly into there, that somebody turned the shoebox out and all the pieces fell out and then gave us a new box, but it wasn't the same dimensions. And then we had to figure out what even fit back in the box, or like, did we even want to fit that back in the box, or how was it going to work? And it was just a brain bender, and it was absolutely exhausting. And we knew for sure that we didn't want to totally close. We weren't going to entirely close, because we know how hard it is to open something. We've opened 3 brick and mortar stores, and each one of those is a major project of love, you know? And the thought of having to reopen our entire facility sounded exhausting. So if there was any little way that we could remain open, then we would do it, which for us was the online store. So we switched to being essentially an e-commerce brand, which we have no experience in. And to be totally honest, we just aren't that techie here. It's not really like our thing. And so we were able to, we did it, and we did it successfully, and customers were so supportive. It was really amazing, and I think really inspiring. It felt like everybody was cheering us on, because so many of the names you'd see come through on the online orders were names that you're used to seeing in store. And so you go, oh, I know them. Or they would be ordering even more chocolate than they usually would, just because they wanted to make sure that they were supporting and keeping small businesses open. And that kind of support meant the world. Like, I think that's what really could keep us going. But we switched over, we did it, we took notes, we learned from what was not going right, and we've really spent our summer now pivoting from this old model to a new normal. And I don't think we wasted a lot of time waiting around for the old to come back. I think we've just kind of transitioned into a new company that is a little more tech reliant than we've ever been before. Bon 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 is totally unlike your typical box of chocolate, and on purpose too. It starts with the way that the design is. So the way we've designed it is built to eliminate waste, but in a couple different ways. So we're systematically reducing the amount of waste that we have so that we can buy chocolate that's much more expensive, or just plain ingredients that are much more expensive where we want to buy them. So, but also eliminating waste throughout the process so that our chocolate box is totally recyclable. And so is everything that it's cold packed and shipped in. So often it's shipped in styrofoam. It's also built to order so that you can get as many or as few pieces as you want. You know the phrase, life is like a box of chocolates, you never know what you're gonna get. But that's actually just like a major design flaw of like, why don't you just label your chocolate correctly and then everybody knows exactly what they're eating, which is more fun anyway, because like so often you end up just going through the whole box of chocolate and like sticking your thumb in the bottom and be like, do I like this one? No. Do I like this? And then like there shouldn't even be flavors like that where you're like, this one is gross, because I've had gross chocolate before and that's wrong. The proudest moment for me at Bon 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 is when one of my employees buys a car. Hands down, it's the best day ever. It was an unanticipated thing because when I opened Bon Bon Bon, I very much opened it because I had a lot of unanswered questions about the chocolate industry of like, hey, why does the packaging always cost more than the chocolate? Like, what if we started a chocolate shop where like the product actually costs more than the packaging? Like, seems like, you know, I really was opening it for questions that I had. What do we see for the future? I mean, more of those days. We aren't going anywhere. Like, I really feel convinced since COVID hit and in all of 2020, Bon 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 will stick around.
I think we're really great at thriving in chaos, that it's really been interesting in light of COVID happening and kind of coming up with creative solutions to the problems that we're faced with, which is something that I think is exciting.
What exactly that looks like, though, I'm really open to. It's such a creative culture here that there's 1,000 ideas on the table, and I'm excited. I'm excited to see exactly where we end up.